My mother-in-law secretly changed my son's birth certificate behind my back, so I exposed her criminal conspiracy. My mother-in-law thought she could steal my newborn son's identity and name him after her dead husband without telling me. What she didn't know was that I had security cameras everywhere. What happened next sent her to jail and destroyed her perfect family reputation forever. I'm Jake, 31, and this nightmare began just 4 months ago when my wife, Emma, 28, gave birth to our first child. What should have been the happiest day of our lives turned into a legal battle that exposed my mother-in-law's criminal mind and her 20-year plan to control our family. The first sign something was wrong came when I was holding my newborn son in the hospital recovery room. We had decided to name him Oliver James Thompson, after my grandfather who raised me after my parents died. Emma and I had discussed this for months, even had the paperwork ready. But when the nurse brought the birth certificate for us to sign, something felt off. My mother-in-law, Linda, 56, had been hovering around the hospital for 2 days, insisting on helping with all the paperwork since Emma was exhausted from a difficult 18-hour labor. "Don't worry about those boring forms, Jake," Linda had said with her signature fake smile. "I used to work in hospital administration. I'll handle all the bureaucratic stuff so you two can focus on bonding with the baby." At the time, it seemed helpful. Emma was barely conscious from the pain medication, and I was running on no sleep. Having someone handle the paperwork felt like a blessing. The bomb dropped 3 days later when we got home. I was changing Oliver's diaper when Emma called out from the kitchen. "Jake, there's something wrong with these hospital documents. They have the baby's name listed as Richard Michael Thompson." My blood froze. "What do you mean, Richard Michael?" Emma walked into the nursery holding the official birth certificate, her face pale. "Look at this. Someone changed our son's name. This says Richard Michael Thompson, not Oliver James." I stared at the document. There it was, in official government print. Richard Michael Thompson. Born 3 days ago. Parents, Jake Thompson and Emma Rodriguez Thompson. "This has to be a mistake," I said. But even as the words left my mouth, I knew it wasn't. Richard Michael. Those were the names of Linda's deceased husband, Emma's father who had died 15 years ago. The man Linda had been obsessed with memorializing ever since. "We need to call the hospital immediately," Emma said, but she was already crying. "How does something like this happen?" I called the hospital's records department and spoke to a supervisor. What she told me made my hands shake with rage. "Mr. Thompson, according to our records, the birth certificate was filed by Linda Rodriguez, who identified herself as the maternal grandmother with power of attorney for medical decisions. She presented proper identification and signed all the documents as the family representative." Power of attorney? "We never gave her power of attorney." "Sir, I'm looking at the paperwork now. It's all properly notarized and filed. If there's a dispute, you'll need to take it up with the county clerk's office and possibly law enforcement." I hung up and immediately called my lawyer friend, Marcus, who specialized in family law. "Jake, this is serious," he said after I explained the situation. "If she forged power of attorney documents and used them to falsify a birth certificate, that's multiple felonies. Document fraud, identity theft, potentially conspiracy if anyone helped her." That's when I remembered something crucial. 6 months ago, I'd installed a comprehensive security system in our house after a string of break-ins in the neighborhood. The system included cameras in every room except bedrooms and bathrooms, and it backed up everything to cloud storage. I pulled up the footage from 2 weeks before Emma's due date. What I found was a gold mine of evidence that showed Linda's crime wasn't impulsive. It was a carefully planned conspiracy. The first recording was Linda in our home office, alone, going through our filing cabinet. She photographed our insurance cards, social security cards, and other personal documents with her phone. The second recording, from 3 days later, showed Linda on our couch with her sister Carol, 52, who worked as a notary public. "I just need you to notarize a few documents for Emma's medical care," Linda was saying. "She's too pregnant to come to your office, and Jake is so busy with work." "Linda, you know I'm supposed to verify identity in person," Carol replied. "Oh, don't be so formal. This is family. Emma will sign them when she gets back from her doctor's appointment. I just want to have everything ready for when the baby comes." I watched Carol notarize blank power of attorney forms while Linda promised Emma would sign them later. What Carol didn't know was that Linda never intended to have Emma sign anything. The third recording was the smoking gun. Linda alone in our office again, this time forging Emma's signature on the power of attorney documents. She practiced the signature multiple times on scratch paper before signing the official forms. But the most damning evidence was a phone conversation I caught on the kitchen camera. Linda was talking to someone, pacing back and forth while Emma napped upstairs. "Everything's ready for when the baby arrives," she was saying. "The hospital will never question a grieving mother wanting to honor her deceased husband. Richard Michael Thompson has a nice ring to it, doesn't it?" She paused, listening to whoever was on the other end. "Jake will be upset initially, but once it's official, what can he do? You can't just change a birth certificate on a whim. By the time he figures out how to fix it legally, little Richie will be calling me Grandma Richard, and everyone will be used to the name." Another pause. "Emma will come around. She's always been a daddy's girl, and she knows how important this is to me. Having a grandson named after Richard will help heal the family." I sat in my car in the hospital parking lot, shaking with rage as I listened to this recording. This woman had planned to steal my son's identity as a way to force her dead husband's memory onto him. But Linda had made one crucial mistake. She assumed I wouldn't fight back. I called Marcus immediately and sent him all the recordings. Within 2 hours, we had filed a police report for document fraud, forgery, and identity theft. We also filed an emergency motion with the family court to restore our son's correct name and to obtain a restraining order against Linda. The police were fascinated by the video evidence. Detective Martinez, who handled fraud cases, told me it was the most well-documented case of birth certificate fraud she'd ever seen. "Most of these cases are he said, she said situations," she explained. "But you have her on video forging documents, conspiring with the notary, and explaining her entire plan. This is an easy prosecution." The confrontation came the next day when Linda arrived at our house for her usual helpful grandmother visit. I had the police waiting in an unmarked car down the street. "Jake, how's my little Richie doing?" she called out as she walked through the front door. "His name is Oliver," I said quietly, "and we need to talk." Linda's face shifted slightly, but she maintained her innocent grandmother act. "Oh, Jake, I know you're upset about the paperwork mix-up. These things happen in hospitals. We can get it sorted out." "Mix-up?" I pulled out my laptop and opened the video file. "Is this what you call a mix-up?" I played the recording of her forging Emma's signature. Linda's face went white as she watched herself commit felony document fraud in high definition. "Jake, I can explain, Dash. Can you explain this too?" I played the phone conversation where she outlined her entire plan. Linda sat down heavily on our couch. For the first time since I'd known her, she had nothing to say. "You committed multiple felonies to steal my son's name," I continued. "You forged legal documents, you conspired with your sister to create fraudulent notarized forms, and you changed our child's birth certificate without our consent." "I was honoring Richard's memory," she said weakly. "Emma would have wanted Dash. Emma didn't even know. You did this while she was unconscious from childbirth medications." That's when Emma walked downstairs, carrying Oliver. She'd heard the entire conversation. "Mom, is this true? Did you really plan this whole thing?" Linda looked at her daughter with tears in her eyes. "Emma, honey, I just wanted little Richard to carry on his grandfather's name. You loved your father so much, Dash. So you committed crimes? You forged my signature and stole my son's identity." "I didn't steal anything. I was honoring family tradition." I made the signal to Detective Martinez, who had been listening from the kitchen. She walked into the living room with her badge displayed. "Linda Rodriguez, you're under arrest for document fraud, forgery, and identity theft." The look on Linda's face as the handcuffs clicked into place was something I'll never forget. Pure shock that her helpful grandmother act hadn't protected her from the consequences of her crimes. Update 1. 2 weeks later. The legal fallout was swift and devastating for Linda's entire family. Carol, the notary, was arrested as an accessory after the DA reviewed the evidence. She claimed she didn't know Linda was forging signatures, but the video clearly showed her notarizing blank documents, which was illegal regardless of intent. The state revoked Carol's notary license, and she was charged with official misconduct. Her employer, a real estate company, fired her immediately when they learned about the charges. Emma was devastated but finally saw her mother's true nature. "I keep thinking about all the times Mom helped with paperwork over the years," she told me. "How many other documents did she forge? How many other times did she manipulate situations to get what she wanted?" We discovered this wasn't Linda's first fraud. Going through old family documents, we found evidence that she had forged her late husband's signature on insurance papers years ago to increase her beneficiary amount. She had also been intercepting and cashing Emma's student loan refund checks during college, telling Emma the school was having processing delays. The birth certificate was corrected within a week thanks to the criminal case. Oliver James Thompson was officially restored as our son's legal name, and Linda was banned from all hospital property. Update 2. 1 month later. Linda's trial became local news when the DA's office used it as an example of elder fraud prevention. The headline read, "Grandmother arrested for birth certificate fraud scheme." The story went viral on social media, especially in parenting groups where people shared their own mother-in-law horror stories. The video evidence was particularly shocking to viewers who couldn't believe someone would plan such an elaborate crime just to name a grandchild. Linda's church community, where she had been a respected member for 20 years, was horrified. She was quietly asked to step down from the women's ministry leadership and stopped attending services altogether. Her social circle abandoned her entirely when details of the other frauds came to light. The woman who had always presented herself as a devoted widow and perfect mother was exposed as a serial manipulator who had been stealing from her own family for years. Emma started therapy to deal with the realization that her mother had been gaslighting and financially abusing her for most of her adult life. "I used to think she was just overly helpful," Emma told her therapist. "Now I realize she was controlling every aspect of my life through lies and manipulation." Update 3. 3 months later. Linda pled guilty to avoid a jury trial, but the judge wasn't lenient. She received 18 months in county jail, 3 years probation, and was ordered to pay restitution for all the fraudulent activities we could prove. Carol received 6 months and lost her notary license permanently, but cooperated with prosecutors and received a lighter sentence. The most satisfying moment came during Linda's sentencing hearing. The judge asked if she had anything to say for herself. "Your Honor, I was just trying to honor my late husband's memory. I never meant to hurt anyone." The judge looked at her with obvious disgust. "Mrs. Rodriguez, you committed premeditated felonies against your own family, including identity theft of a newborn child. You forged your daughter's signature while she was recovering from childbirth. This wasn't about honoring anyone's memory. This was about control and manipulation." He continued, "You violated the most basic trust between family members and committed crimes that could have affected this child's legal identity for his entire life. The court finds your actions particularly reprehensible because you targeted vulnerable family members during one of the most important moments of their lives." Linda was led away in handcuffs, crying and calling out to Emma, who refused to look at her. Final update. For months later, Emma and I decided to go no contact with Linda permanently. We changed our phone numbers, moved to a new address, and blocked her on all social media. The restraining order remains in effect. Emma's extended family was split. Some blamed us for tearing the family apart and claimed Linda's intentions were good, even if her methods were wrong. Others were horrified by what Linda had done and supported our decision to cut contact. Emma's uncle Tom, Linda's brother, apologized to us on behalf of the family. "I always knew Linda was controlling, but I had no idea she was capable of this level of manipulation. You did the right thing protecting your son. Oliver is now 4 months old and thriving. He has no idea his grandmother tried to steal his identity before he was even a week old. We've documented everything in case he ever asks questions when he's older. The security cameras are still running 24/7. After experiencing Linda's elaborate planning and deception, we've learned to document everything and trust our instincts when something feels wrong. I still have all the video evidence backed up in multiple locations. Sometimes I watch the footage to remind myself that people can present a perfect facade while planning crimes against their own family members. Linda is scheduled for release in 8 months, but we've made it clear through our lawyer that any attempt to contact us or Oliver will result in additional criminal charges. We've moved on with our lives, and she's not welcome in them. Epilogue. The whole experience taught me that family relationships built on manipulation and control aren't really family relationships at all. Linda spent years grooming Emma to accept her interference as help when it was really about maintaining power over every major decision. But trying to steal our son's identity was her fatal overreach. She got so confident in her ability to manipulate situations that she committed felonies, assuming we'd be too polite or too family-oriented to hold her accountable. She was wrong. Oliver James Thompson, his real name, the one Emma and I chose together, will grow up knowing that his parents protected him from manipulation from day one. He'll learn that setting boundaries with toxic people isn't cruel, it's necessary. Linda wanted to force her dead husband's name onto our son as a way to maintain control over our family even from beyond the grave. Instead, she lost access to her daughter and grandson forever, destroyed her reputation in the community, and earned a criminal record that will follow her for the rest of her life. Sometimes the best way to honor the dead is to let them rest in peace, not use their memory as a weapon to control the living. Linda never learned that lesson, and it cost her everything. Now when people ask why Emma doesn't talk to her mother, we tell them the truth. She tried to steal our baby's identity for her own selfish purposes. Most people are shocked into silence. A few ask how someone could plan something so elaborate and cruel. The answer is simple. When you've spent years getting away with smaller manipulations and frauds, you start to believe you're untouchable. Linda had been stealing from and manipulating Emma for so long that she thought forging a birth certificate would just be another successful scheme. But every criminal eventually makes a mistake. Linda's mistake was trying to steal from a father who had nothing left to lose and everything to protect. She picked the wrong family to mess with, and she'll spend the next 8 months in jail thinking about how her perfect plan destroyed her life instead of getting her what she wanted. Oliver is sleeping peacefully in his crib as I write this, completely unaware that his identity was once the center of a criminal conspiracy. When he's old enough to understand, I'll tell him the whole story. I'll show him the videos, the court documents, and the news articles. And I'll teach him the most important lesson Linda's crime taught me. When someone shows you who they really are through their actions, believe them the first time. Don't wait for them to escalate to felonies.